So let's just get a couple of things under our belt as far as navigating through the Camera Raw interface. First thing I want to explain is that I've got my Camera Raw interface expanded to full screen. If you would rather have yours expanded to full screen, and I would suggest you do that, just so you're not distracted by anything that happens to be living on your desktop, then just go in the upper right-hand corner there, and you'll see that there's two arrows up there, toggle full screen mode. And if I was to click on that, it would reduce the size of the screen, and then click it again and it'll expand it all out. So the interface here is divided up into columns and rows, if you will. And I'm going to say that we have 3 columns, maybe 4 columns, probably just 3 columns. But let's see. So this interface is divided up into columns and rows. And I'm going to say that this is the topmost row. And in there we have the file name and the camera make and model that was used to capture this image. And then we have a couple of icons over here. This one is convert and save image. So in other words, if you're done editing in Camera Raw and you don't want to open it up in Photoshop and you just want to, get it done, then you would click on that. You'll get a dialog box asking you, what parameters you want to export it as, file format, size, and all that kind of stuff. Then we have this guy over here, which is our preferences dialog box, which allows us to set up the software to suit our needs. And for the most part, we're going to be happy with the preferences that we have, but we will go through those. So that's row 1. Row 2 is the big one in the center here. And this row has 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, and then a 4th column all the way down here. Then this middle column is divided into 2 rows. 1, the image area, and 2, some of the zooming percentages and all that kind of stuff. We've got some filtering things going on over here. Okay, you can give some star ratings if that's how you choose to rate and rank your photos, or you can actually toss them into the trash if you want to. Not sure I would, advise that. Over here on the right-hand corner, we have 2 icons. The first one here, if you roll a cursor over, you'll see that it says it cycles between the before and after views of your image. The next one will toggle to default setting. Then we have the bottom row. The bottom row deals with, as you can see down here, the color space, Adobe RGB 1998, 8 bits, and then the physical dimensions in pixels. It's a 12.1 megapixel file coming from that camera. This camera has a 12 megapixel sensor. All right, and then the one thing that you'll see that's probably different than anything else you've got is that I have my resolution, pixels per inch, set to 360. The reason for that is because I have an Epson inkjet printer, and Epson inkjet printers use a different technology than, say, Canon or HP. And Canon and HP, they require you to have a 300 pixel per inch image, and so do Photolabs. But Epson, like I said, uses a different technology, so we can actually put smaller dots down in the same area and therefore possibly generate more detail in our final print. And then down here we have a cancel button. In other words, you start editing and then you say, I'm done with this. I don't even want to bother with it. And you just click cancel and, no edits are done. The next one over here is your done button. So let's just say you're editing an image and you've gotten to a certain point where you're done with it, but you don't want to open it up in Photoshop. You don't want to save it out anywhere. You want to come, you've got it to a point, but you might want to come back and revisit it after, you run an errand, go have dinner, spend time with your family, whatever it is. Click the done. And the edits that you have done up until that point are saved in an XMP file. And then the next time you open the same image up, the exact same edits will be there waiting for you to continue on if that's what you decide to do. We also have the open button, and the open button will open this in Adobe Photoshop. So if I was to click open right now, it would take a couple of seconds for Photoshop to launch, and then it would appear in Adobe Photoshop as a raw file, but kind of in the pixel world, if you will, right? And I bet you anything that when we do that later on, we'll see that it still says NEF. And when I go File Save or File Save As, I get the option to choose a file format such as PNG, JPEG, TIFF, or whatever else. And if I click on here, we've got other options. So we can open as an object and we can open as a copy. We'll talk about these guys a little bit later on. So now if I had multiple images, when I selected to open in Camera Raw in Bridge, if I had multiple images selected in Bridge, they'd show up as thumbnails going all the way down here. And I'll show you a scenario for editing in that as well. So now in the upper right-hand corner here, we're looking at this thing, which is a histogram. And the histogram is just a visual representation of where the darks and lights and all that tonality reside in your image. So we come over here and we can see that as I move my cursor throughout the, it doesn't matter if I'm in the graph or if I'm above the graph, you're going to see little blocks of, lighter gray and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to see down here, this information changes to what Adobe calls that area of the image that we're working on. So this center area is called exposure. And if I just go a little bit to the left, we're in the shadows because this is the dark end of the histogram and over here is the light end of the histogram. So over here, you can see that it says white. And then if I move to the left a little bit, we're going to probably see something called highlights. These are the highlight areas, but they're not the the brightest whites and all that kind of stuff. Then we got exposure, which is also used to be called midtones. And then if I go a little bit more to the left, we have the shadow areas. And if I go even further to the left, we have our blacks. So now the next thing I want to show you is we have these little triangles up here, which is shadow clipping warning and highlight clipping warning. And I can turn them on. And then as I edit my image, I can get a visual in my image itself as where we've got some clipping going on. And what clipping means is that one of the three channels is so bright that that color information is not going to be visible to us in our image. So if I turn this on and off, you can see in this area right here, I have some red clipping. That means that that area is really, really bright. And one of the three colors, red, green, and blue, are blown out. So what I might want to do is get that little red thing going up the wall here on the right-hand side to kind of come down. So what I might want to do is come over here in the lights panel, and you can see we have exposure, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks, and possibly pull back on the whites to reduce that. Let me just see if that works. So if I come over here and do this and pull that down, you see how I pull the whites down? And now we don't have any, there's probably a little bit in there, but it's not a big deal. Actually, what we had there wasn't a big deal either, but that's besides the point. So I've moved that down to the left, and I ended up at minus 57. I could probably go to minus 60 and just, be done with it. Now, if I want to put that back to 0, all I have to do is double click on the slider, and that goes with any slider in any dialog box here. Double click on it and it goes back to its defaults. Now, if I wanted to show you what the shadow clipping looks like, it's going to be blue. So I'm going to take my blacks here and I am going to drag this all the way down and you can start seeing some of this blue stuff showing up. That means that there's no color information in there, and it's just going to print pure black. So we might want to not have something like that going on, although if I click on this and turn it off, looks great to me, but there's other parts of black that we might want to have a little bit of detail. So if I double click on that and see that, well, we do have a little bit of space where we can come, and you can see how this is kind of the ascending part of this little mountain here, and it just kind of flat lines in there. So we could probably just move the information just a little bit over a little there, but we're going to turn that off for now. And we're going to just take a deep breath and take a look at the icons that are coming down here. Now this one here, which is 3 sliders with the little doohickeys on them, well, that just means we're in the edit portion of Adobe Camera Raw. If I come over here and click on this guy, this is the crop, rotate and flip, and geometry. If I come over to this one, this is the remove, and we have a variety of tools working with remove, and some of them are actually using AI in here. So we can come over here, and this is something that is really, really new, and it replaces local edits with masking. And it's really, really cool. I'm glad to see that it's finally in here, and we've got a whole chapter just on that. This guy over here is red eye removal, and all it's doing is it's just finding the red that's in a red eye, and you have to determine the size of the pupil and then how dark you want it to go and all that fun stuff. And you got red eye and you got pet eye, because apparently pets have different red eye scenarios than humans do. Now, how do you get red eye? Generally speaking, when you have a on-camera flash sitting on the hot shoe and you've got it bent down at its normal 90 degrees and you're taking a picture of someone in a darkly lit room, hence the reason why you're using the flash, what's happening is the light is coming off the flash unit, it's hitting the subject, it's going right through the subject's eyes, hitting the red retinas in the back of the head, and then reflecting back at you. There's your red eye. A lot of flash units will have a pre-flash that automatically goes. In other words, it'll send off a burst a split second before the real picture is taken, and that's to fool the person into 1, blinking, and 2, getting their pupil to shrink down. In other words, it's not wide open like saucers. All right, so that's what that's all about. And yeah, there's ways of getting around red eye as well, even when you're using a flash. We can talk about that when we're back. Then we come over here and we've got something called snapshots. Snapshots is just basically a way for us to take a look at what an image looks like with this set of edit criteria going on. And then you say, well, maybe I want something a little bit different. So you take a snapshot of what it looks like with this edit. Then you go ahead and change it and take a snapshot of that. And then you can toggle snapshots back and forth, deciding which one you like better. Then we come over here and we've got this guy, which is our presets. Presets are very similar to actions in Photoshop. And yeah, we're going to be looking over all the presets that come with the software, but we're also going to create our own presets. It's going to be some fun time, and they'll end up in the user presets there. This last thing over here is what we call additional menu items, edit items, and all that kind of stuff. So you can see that we've got some stuff going on there. Anyways, we got that down there. Down at the bottom here, we have our zoom tool. So notice that I have a zoom tool icon, and it's got a plus sign, and I click once and I've zoomed in 100%. Let's see if I can click on this guy and see what we're at. It says we're at 100%. If I go down to 66, is it? Let's go in here. Oh, yes. Okay. So let's just go down to fit and view, and we're back to where we are. All right. If I want to zoom in a specific area or to a non-predefined value that we have in here, then all I have to do is click, hold, and then I can drag one way or the other to increase or decrease what we're doing. All right. And then if I'm zoomed into this point and I want to, scroll up or scroll down, you'll notice there aren't any scroll bars in here. So what we have to do is come over here and grab the hand tool. And grabbing the hand tool will allow us to click on the image and then just move your cursor up, down, left, or right, and you'll be able to get in there. But there is a keyboard shortcut that I want to talk about right now, and that is to hold down your space bar. Holding down your space bar will temporarily turn any cursor that you have into the hand tool. Then you click and then just drag to reposition. Just click and drag to reposition. There you go, just like that. All right. And then we come down here and we have something called the sample tool. And what that allows us to do is, okay, stop. Notice where my cursor is right now. What I want you to do is I want you to take a look at the histogram. Above the histogram, you're going to see red, green, and blue RGB. You're going to see RGB numbers. And that is where the hotspot on my cursor is placed in the image. I have a red value of 91, a green value of 99, and a blue value of 102. That's pretty neutral. And if you take a look at where it is kind of a neutral thing. It just has more blue and green than it does have red. But anyways, that's for a different story.